Hello, Basic Brian here. Today I just wanted to do a little reading from this Resident Evil the book. The preface is particularly interesting. I'm going to start that. And it is actually the Capcom one, so there's like some promotional information about the development in here, and from Shinji Mikami. And I'm going to start reading that. There's a bit of a novelization, pre-story to the game as well in here, and just gonna give it a chance. Translated words from Shinji Mikami, producer of Resident Evil. The creation of horror entertainment. If we can sell 300,000 units worldwide, that's good enough. The creation of Resident Evil was the idea of the ex-chief of consumer R&D, and he told me to create a horror game based on Sweet Home, an NES game released only in Japan. To tell you the truth, when I was instructed to create a horror game, I was not very excited. Usually when I'm involved in planning for a new project, I am given much more detailed concepts and specifications. But in this case, all I was told was to create a horror game. Since I wanted to make a game which could generate over 1 million units of sales, I was not satisfied with the instructions for the project. So I decided to talk to my boss. Why do we need to focus on the horror genre, which has a selective market? Shouldn't we focus on a more popular genre? The director said, "We don't have to sell a large number of games. Our goal is to create a game that is worth owning. It is enough if a total of 300,000 for both PlayStation and Saturn can be sold." His idea of worth owning stirred my motivation as a creator. "Okay, let's do it," I replied. It's not a threat. The gameplay of Sweet Home was a bold game in which the collection of key elements for clearing the game was divided among 5 different characters. Moreover, the players have the possibility to die during the course of the game, and there are many obstacles which the player encounters in the game. For example, items left on the ground can be exchanged often. Overall, it was a very complicated game concept. It was kind of a game you could get addicted to. The director seriously said that the person who was previously in charge of game development almost died. He looked like a walking zombie. I felt sorry for him. Judging from the seriousness of his tone about the previous producer, I felt the threat that he really meant it. Hearing these words, I made up my mind to do one thing. I have to move closer to Capcom. By moving, I can cut the commute time. The rent for my apartment would be a lot higher than before, but I can at least get the time to sleep. What a good idea! Our masterpiece, Sweet Home. After I made up my mind to start the project, I put together an analysis of Sweet Home. When I entered Capcom, my supervisor was creating the game, and at that time, I could not imagine I would create a game on the same game engine. While I was analyzing the game, I was very impressed how the game was meticulously constructed. I didn't want to copy Sweet Home, but I wanted to use the essence of the game and create a new type of horror entertainment. Survivor horror. Sweet Home was a horror game based on the movie Sweet Home, directed by Mikami. You should try this game. It is very fun. Petrified by fear. I've been talking about Sweet Home so far, but I think that the main attraction of Resident Evil is fear. I really want to make it as scary as a game as possible. When I first started the game concept, I thought of creating a game on evil spirits or a suspense thriller, but nothing struck me. I thought about one concept based on an evil spirit who collects magic spells to fight against the enemy, a bad spirit. But if I use this scenario, even if I win, I do not feel very good. I didn't want to make a game which would feel like that. I wanted to make a horror game that makes the user feel great to play. I wanted to make a game with something that threatens the user and not fully believing in the evil spirit idea. I felt the user could simultaneously feel the fear and enjoy playing the game. Like the last scene of Jaws, I wanted to make a game in which I could shoot a gun against an enemy in the critical, desperate situation and blow it into pieces. I wanted to have the user be confronted with fear and let the player decide how to fight in his or her own way. I didn't want to use the concept of evil spirits because the spirits are too ambiguous. But instead I wanted to create something more directly visible, which could approach and actually threaten the users. In other words, I wanted to make the user feel very scared. Maybe something is waiting for him around the next corner. Zombie. When I was thinking of what kind of enemy I wanted to create, the image of zombie came to my mind. If I think now why zombies came up in my mind, I may have been inspired by a zombie from Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which I used to watch when I was in junior high. In the movie, the zombies used to be human and then became walking dead bodies that live on human flesh. Zombies walk somewhat like human and approach the human in an awkward step to attack you. It's scary because there is no reason you have to be killed by zombies, but they will attack you to eat your flesh. The gruesomeness of the death made a viewer involuntarily scream, "Don't come to me!" A brave hero-heroine determined to fight against terror. The characters of Resident Evil do not get scared by zombies unlike in the horror movie. The game is different from a movie in the fact that the user actually becomes a hero-heroine in the game. I like the horror movies, yet I have never wanted to become a hero in a movie. I always wanted a horror movie hero to be a cool guy who has the courage to fight against terror, even though he was scared out of his mind. I wanted the characters I would create for this game to be more responsible and act aggressively, although deep inside too, they are scared. Designing a player was a problem from the start since I did not have a design staff in my team. I redesigned again and again. It was like a ship stuck on the rocks that could not sail further. After I exhausted myself, I continued to design with Mr. Uwashi, who came on board as a result of my request to borrow his expertise and talent. My emphasis of making a cool hero differed from Mr. Inoshi's realistic point of view, yet Resident Evil came out beautifully due to his help. However, we had to tone down the original character of Jill as she was too much of an idealized heroine. The interval between music is sound. The interval between sounds is music. Sound was very important for the production of Resident Evil. Sound effects are necessary in order to create a terrifying atmosphere. We took care to build an increasingly atmosphere of fear in the sound effects, and at the same pace as growing fear and tension of the storyline, I knew that the loud music wouldn't build the user's fear up to the peak. It was important to subtly use the scary BGM background music and feed tidbits to the player so that the chills were maintained throughout. If the user heard the BGM continuously, it would be like driving on the freeway at 60 miles an hour. The driver would be nervous in the beginning, but not after a while. Thus, I was afraid the user would get used to the BGM and never feel fear afterward. I knew that I had to use the BGM very carefully. One day at the drinking place near Capcom, I had talked to Mr. Zawa, a sound specialist. He told me that he thinks that silent intervals between sound is also music. Negative space and art, kind of. As I frequently listen to classical music, I am strongly attracted to the intervals between the music because I believe that it expresses the individual playing style of the musician. So I strongly agree with Mr. Tomazawa. And we were talking about music all night. Anything is fine if it's scary. Okay, let's give an objective feel to the game. At the beginning, Resident Evil was designed using the first-person viewpoint and with the real-time full polygonal background. But while progressing in the R&D of the project, we found out that we used up the hardware memory capacity. Oh no! If we kept working on the project as originally planned, the project would not achieve 90% of what we were attempting. The reason why I wanted to use the first person was to create a state of being petrified by fear. But wait, I thought that maybe I could find another way to express the state of being petrified by fear without using the first person view. This would work if I could find a way to express the game from an objective third person point of view. If we stuck to the original methods, we may not achieve what we truly wanted. We decided to create the background as one drawing and use polygons for the players and enemies in order to save memory and to create a more realistic, beautiful, and fearful movement. When we originally wanted to use the first person view, I wanted to create petrified by fear by enemies' existence through shadow on the blind. But even in the third person view, I could still create the fear in the section between cuts. So the user feels the fear at the next blind cut around the next corner. I then gathered the team staff and talked about the changes, but the response was not good since they were attached to what they had created so far. So it was a big change for them to work on. I thought that the final project should explain it. Fear from Resident Evil. The thing I am still not satisfied with in Resident Evil is the complex operation of the game. This is the largest shortcoming resulting from the third-person view change. The game has to be played like radio control system when the game is created by linking and coming and going cuts, but we had another idea of how to control the gameplay. It was like this: all scenes were taken from bird's eye perspectives from above, and it would be boring if the user played against the screen because the scene would not change. If the user clicked the scene he wanted to go without a directional button, and if he got there automatically, he would feel being with the character on the screen. Moreover, that kind of maneuvering in order to reach a position was more irritating than fun. Resident Evil should be scary, everyone. Please forgive me for this game control. Please accept this awkward operation and enjoy the game. This has often bothered me, though Resident Evil has achieved its greatest reputation. I can't change how I feel and haven't overcome my feelings of shortcoming about this aspect of the game. Sorry. So that's the start of the preface. I hope this was kind of interesting. Maybe I'll read more. Maybe I'll read some of the novelization. All the best. Take care. Cheers.